Tyler.
Hey, Emily, how you been?
Good. And thinking about changing careers, and someone mentioned to me that I should look in the energy industry. And they said, hey, I know this guy, Tyler. He works at the Need Project, and he's a career expert in the energy field. So I thought maybe you would be okay with me recording this, and we could talk a little bit about some cool careers in the energy world that I could maybe look into.
Oh my gosh, yes, I am so glad you came to me. I've been in the energy industry for about over a decade, and it's amazing the job opportunities that are in the energy industry for all different realms and people and skill levels and interests. So you're definitely in the right place. And I actually have some information, if you don't mind sharing with you, some pictures and stuff, if you'd like to see that.
I would love to.
Awesome.
This is perfect because the other day, I feel like this is the same kind of person. I had someone come into my house and audit my energy use. And I was like, is this a job? Is this a thing that you do every day? And he said, yeah, I'm a certified energy manager and I'm an energy efficiency specialist. I had no idea that this was a job. Tell me more about this guy.
Well, this is really freaky because it's ironic that that's pretty much what I do the majority of my time with the Need Project is I am building operator certified, which is very similar to an energy manager. And I work with other people with the Need Project that are also certified energy managers. So the person who came to your house was an energy efficiency specialist. He was looking at your house to find ways to be more efficient and conserve energy in your home, looking for things like air leaks, light updates, that type of thing. In order to get that career, if you're interested in it, you definitely need a high school diploma. They prefer a secondary degree. For instance, I took a course, building operator certification, that was not only hands-on, but also with textbooks and lectures, and then I had to pass a test. And when I passed that test, I got certified. You can expect to make around $53,000 to $68,000 in this field in those places. Some other things, as I mentioned, you could look at lighting, but the main focus that gentleman was looking for is to save you money and save resources in energy, to maybe reduce your consumption of your natural gas bill or your electricity bill or that type of thing. You can see this picture where you look for air leaks or maybe add some weather stripping or make sure windows are closed tightly. But yeah, it's a great field because you get to go to different places and do different things. You'll have to be familiar with chillers, boilers, a lot of big, fancy, intimidating systems that once you get into them, it's pretty much just algorithms and electricity and breakers and that type of thing.
So are you always going to the places that say like authorized personnel only? That sounds kind of fun.
It is fun. It actually, you walk through that door that says no one else can enter and you get to enter and you're like, yeah, look at me go.
Very cool. All right. This one sounds interesting. Okay, so what if I wanted to make my house more efficient? The guy that came in recommended upgrading my efficiency of my home by installing solar panels. And that got me thinking, like, is that a job I could do? Tell me more about that.
Emily, you may need to be psychic because you are just playing to exactly what I'm thinking. That person would be a photovoltaic installer, or like I like to call them, a solar panel installer. You've seen these things. They're usually on your calculator. What they're doing is taking radiant energy and turning that to usable electrical energy. It's a great way for homes and businesses and anything with a large amount of square footage with access to the sun to make electricity. If you were looking to this career, you would need a high school diploma. And once again, you can get your on-the-job training in a year, a little bit over, but some people can do it in as little as a year. You will definitely need to be familiar with solar panels and how photovoltaics work, knowing how to set up that system, having a very strong background in electricity, as well as not being afraid of heights. Personally, I don't love the heights, Emily. It makes me a little nervous. Even though I'm a tall guy, not big on the heights. The cool thing about a PV installer is we're expecting huge growth because of the initiatives to get renewable energy out into the marketplace. So it'd be a really good career to have. You can estimate the salary at about $36,000 to $56,000. However, some people make a lot more money than that, just depending on where you're at.
So you're telling me I could work in a hands-on way outside most of the time, and I could be at heights? This sounds kind of cool. Okay, so I'm not really great with electricity though, so maybe I would need to brush up on my circuitry and electricity knowledge. Is that true?
That is definitely true. You'd have to know how to use a multimeter. You would definitely have to know the difference between a kilowatt and a watt and amps and all that fun stuff. If you don't have an interest in that and the conversions and using your calculator and using a pencil and a paper to do that mathematics, it may not be the field for you.
Okay. Well, that's a good insight. I hear those jobs are pretty in demand in some areas.
They absolutely are.
Okay. All right. Tell me about something totally different. What if I don't want to be outside all day? What's another option for me?
Okay, so that's a very good question. You have a really good personality, Emily. I feel like you could sell ice to Eskimos, so to speak. So there's a career that I think would be really good for you. It's what they call an energy marketing specialist, which is it's a real broad way of saying a multitude of different things. You do get a bachelor's degree in being an energy marketing specialist. You have to be familiar with the programs that utility companies have. But essentially, you're influencing people to do something that your company or you think is a benefit. You're going to advertise. You're going to have a strong knowledge in radio, newspaper, any kind of media outlet.
So I would probably have to go to college for a marketing degree because I don't have one of those, right? But so I could work with small businesses, with big businesses. Would I be helping to manage their accounts and keep them as a customer? That sounds pretty interesting. I think
you absolutely would. Yeah, it would. You're definitely going to have to enjoy working with people. You're definitely going to have to be that type that likes to make new friends. This is not one of those careers that's for the introvert that just wants to sit in their office. This is for that person who wants to go out there, shake hands, and make eye contact and have a good time.
So finding lots of ways to creatively communicate would be a skill set.
Absolutely.
I think that one sounds a little bit like me.
I think so.
Well, I don't know if I would like to work in an office all the time. Give me something that's a little more hands-on.
Okay, well, I have to say, yes, I'm an energy efficiency specialist, but I have just such a huge passion for not only agriculture, but for welding. Have you ever welded before, Emily?
I don't even know what that means.
Awesome.
What does a welder do?
Oh my gosh, it is therapeutic. Some people do yoga, some people run. I'm telling you, girl, I like to weld. It's fun. So pretty much what you're doing with welding is you are heating metal and mending it together. So you may fix things, may fix equipment, but more specifically as a career, you're going to work in the energy industry, most likely putting pipes together, building equipment for the energy industry. You see a lot of this in the natural gas. That's why I also put the word pipe fitter there and fabricator. You're going to be putting things together. It's fun because you're heating metal. Sparks are flying, as you can see in this picture. This gentleman is having a good time with his stick welder there. But you are going to have a working knowledge of electricity once again, of different temperatures, how different metals work, different sizes and gauges of steel, and what machine you're working. Because there's actually probably about 5 different types of welding. The ones I'm most familiar with are like stick welding and arc welding and TIG welding and MIG welding, where you use gases. So you're going to have to be familiar with some chemistry there too. You could become a welder with just your high school diploma and a 14-week class or apprenticeship or on-the-job certification. You are going to be working with some heavy equipment. You're going to have to be ready for those sparks, Emily. Yep, you're definitely going to need some muscles.
Yeah. So this seems like a little unsafe. What kinds of skills or special clothing, what do I have to be prepared for if I want to be a pipe fitter or a welder?
All right, very good question. So I'll go back a slide, and you see this gentleman in his welding helmet. This helmet changes within like a millionth of a second. it's really bright. You shouldn't look at welding. You shouldn't look at torch light because it's so bright. But these screens actually change to keep those sparks out. If you're going to be a welder, a pipe fitter, fabricator, you're going to have a whole lot of hours of safety. It's kind of the running joke in the industry that these young ladies and these gentlemen that like to work hard with their hands and want to be outside, all of a sudden they have to sit in the office and learn about safety. But they enjoy it and they take it on because it's a part of the job. But you're going to have specialized gloves, specialized shirt, pants, boots that aren't going to be conductive. Like I mentioned, the helmet and the glasses, a lot of safety, and you're going to have to be certified in safety. You're going to have to pass a class and a test and learn about that. You're also going to be wearing hard hats. This young lady here who's a pipe fitter, she has a pipe wrench in her hand. You can see she has tape measure, blue jeans on, reflective vest so the heavy equipment operator behind her can see her, hard hat, safety glasses, safety first. And that means safety comes before anything else.
Well, that makes sense. So I think that there's like a lot of places I could work if this was a job for me, because almost every type of power plant needs pipes for water to flow through or some kind of fluid to move. So this seems like a pretty hot ticket job.
You mentioned locations. A good friend of mine was a pilot. Now he's a welder making really good money. He's working down close to Louisiana. So a lot of times you could be offshore, be an offshore welder, which get paid more. If you're willing to travel and you're willing to go places, not only do you get paid really well per hour rate, but you also get a huge stipend, sometimes $300-400 a day for your food and your housing. But you are going to be required to travel a lot. I believe you're from Pennsylvania, a lot of welders in that area. So depending on where you want to travel or where you want to go, you're absolutely right. The possibilities are endless for where you want to work and how you want to weld, which is good, right? They call that something. They call that job security.
I like that. I like the idea of job security, Tyler. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. That one, you might have, I'm warming up to that one.
I love the puns.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I like working with my hands, but maybe there's another way that I can do that. Tell me something else that maybe sounds a little less dangerous.
Which brings me to the next career, which is a chemist. So a chemist is one of those careers that can work in a multitude of different places in the energy industry. Maybe the oil and gas industry, knowing how those different chemicals flow, right? Chemical energy is the #1 form of energy that we use. You also may work at a uranium or a nuclear power plant. I guess you're going to have to like science experiments. You're going to have to enjoy spending some time in a laboratory like these young ladies and this young gentleman on the bottom left here. You're going to have to like working with chemicals and chemistry and industrial products. The salary range is quite large because of all the different realms of the industry.
So could I be a chemical engineer if I really like chemistry too?
Oh, absolutely. So a lot of times what you'll find is to be a chemist, you need your bachelor's degree. And really, I put chemist, but you're absolutely right. It's more kind of a chemical engineer, because then when you put that engineer there, it kind of makes it sound like you could do some other things. For instance, some chemical engineers get hired to do mechanical things, which we'll talk about engineers in a second. But yes, very good point.
So if I was a chemist, what kinds of things, would I be doing in the oil and gas industry? Like what would I be looking at? We've been using gasoline for a long time. What could a chemist be up to?
So very good question. So let's say you're working for said oil company, and said oil company wants to improve their product. You're going to go to the lab and you're going to make the lubricity of whatever better, right? Maybe you come up with a better synthetic oil. Maybe you come up with a better biofuel. Maybe you come up with something with ethanol that gets more miles per gallon. A chemist is always trying to improve on the product. You may look at aggregates with coal, right? You may look at the different types of coal and how one burns warmer than the other and how much electricity you can generate. So you're always improving, I guess I should say.
So I'm still maybe leaning towards this engineering thing. We talked about chemistry and chemical engineers. What other types of engineers are there?
Oh my goodness. So we mentioned engineer, and we could probably spend days on the engineer career field. As far as being an engineer, you could be an electrical engineer, which you're dealing with electricity. Most power plant operators have that mechanical or electrical engineering degree because that's pretty much what you're doing. You're generating electricity through mechanics, through magnets and coils of copper wire, which also leads to, if you go to a power plant that uses uranium as a source, you'd be what's called a nuclear engineer. You might be an environmental engineer, which is the person that looks for how what you're doing is impacting the environment. Maybe that hydropower plant has some kind of negative biology influence, and you're going to fix that. Or you're going to solve those problems. There's civil engineers. There's so many different engineers. What it boils down to is you're solving problems. Do you like to solve problems?
I love to. That sounds great.
Then engineering might be for you. You just kind of have to figure out what kind of problems you want to solve.
So my brother is an engineer, and he looks more like the guy on the right than the guy on the left. He looks like somebody who's like leading a team and not spending a lot of time outside. How do engineers solve problems indoors when they're not working with their hands outside? What does that look like?
All right, so good question. Sometimes engineers are, like we said, in laboratories. Sometimes you may be using a computer. These two are solving problems outside. This young lady here looks like she's looking at some circuitry to solve a problem with some type of machine or apparatus. I can see a multimeter in the background. She's got her magnifying glass. You're gonna have to understand systems, understand technology, or understand whatever engineering field you're in, and then figure out how to either fix it or improve it. Sometimes the solution's really simple. Sometimes it's really difficult. So
it sounds like I probably have to work on a solution, but probably work with some other people to help me find the solution and probably crunch some numbers.
You're gonna have to crunch some numbers. When you think of engineers, I would say your brother is more of the leader type. He leads by example, but he's really good at listening to others that may see things that he doesn't see to solve those problems. You're also going to have to be good with a timeline and good with budgets.
I don't know. Tell me something else. I want to hear about something totally different. Give me something that's wild and not at all like an engineer.
All right, I'm just gonna barge into something really good and keep it rolling down the river. So you may want to be a barge worker. And I bring this up because I got to meet a barge worker a couple of years ago. And the thing that fascinated me the most about this career is that the one I met, he was working on actually the Mississippi River, and he worked a month on and a month off. So imagine having a whole month off. Yeah, you work hard for a month because he was on the barge. He slept on the barge. He ate on the barge, all that fun stuff. But then when that month was gone, he got to take a month off. So that intrigued me. Typically, depending on where you work on the barge, for instance, if you're going to be the captain of the barge, you may need some secondary education. If you're just going to be on a deckhand, you just need a high school diploma. You're going to most likely be inspecting, connecting. As you can see, these gentlemen with the big clevises there, they're loading things onto the boat. You're going to be towing things. You're going to have that fun schedule. Here's I think it's a young lady on the left and a gentleman on the right, and they're connecting these two barges together that are hauling some coal down the Mississippi River that's covered up. Also commodities. You're going to haul all kinds of different things. You're going to get to work outside.
That sounds kind of fun. I didn't really think about how important it was to have, the movement of our energy sources and how barges might, and boats might play along. Are there other types of nautical jobs that are available for folks who like this environment?
Oh, that's a great question. So I mentioned rivers because that's kind of what I think about when you're hauling commodities, on the river to get to a certain gulf. But I sometimes forget that when you get to the Gulf or you get to an ocean, you might now have to transport those goods and services and commodities overseas or to another country. You may even work on an oil rig or a tanker that's offshore.
So sounds like that could be fun. Probably safety is pretty important in this career too.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's one of those safety first careers and occupations. If you can't be safe, you see this gentleman here with his hard hat. He's communicating with a radio, and he's got bright colors on. If you can't be safe, this is not a career for you, because safety is first.
All right, let's keep going with outdoors. Can you tell me some more outdoorsy jobs?
Well, here's one that may put some wind in your sails, which would be a wind turbine technician. Have you ever seen a wind turbine, Emily? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, I've seen some.
Okay, yeah. So they're about a football field tall, about 300 feet straight up in the air. As you can see, these two individuals on my picture on the left there. Beautiful scenery.
Those are people? Whoa.
They look like ants, don't they? But yeah, you're definitely going to need a high school diploma, and you're going to need some kind of certification and training that's specific to wind turbines. You're going to be installing them. You're going to be inspecting them, maintaining them, operating, and then repairing when they go wrong. I think I have a good picture here. Look at this gentleman here, and they're lifting this thing up 300 feet in the air with a crane. Each of those turbine blades are about 150 feet long, connected to the hub there, and they're lifting that up. So that gentleman there is going to have to be pretty adept at walkie-talkies, talking, measuring wind, being familiar with anemometers, all that fun stuff. Here's some more pictures. And if you're afraid of heights like me, probably not the career for you.
Oh, wow. So Tyler, I mean, there's a lot of wind turbines in the Midwest, for example, right? And those would be pretty easy to get to because you could probably just like drive up to them. But like, what if it's out in the middle of the ocean? How do they get to those?
Well, that's a good question. So a lot of times you could take a boat, but sometimes we'll take a helicopter or some type of aviation to get out there. How fun does that sound?
That sounds amazing. Wait, so that's kind of like Mission Impossible style job. This sounds fun. Safety also seems important. And it sort of sounds like travel could be involved. So I think this one could be a fun job for me.
I think so too. You're also going to have a working knowledge of electricity, since that's the point of a wind turbine, is to generate electricity. So you'll need to know that and understand mechanics and gears, and probably have to be able to work with your hands and have tools as well.
Okay. I think this could be fun. No, I'm still not sure if an outdoor career is the one for me. What else do you have?
Well, if you like the office and you like computers and you like trading things, if you like bartering and really money is your focus, I have the one for you. It's an energy trader, right? So you've seen the stock market, you've seen them going crazy, selling things on the energy is the same way. It's a traded commodity, electricity and energy is. So you're going to need a bachelor's degree in finance, most likely, or some type of related field. You're going to have to understand money, interest rates, mortgages, all that fun stuff. Pretty much what you're doing is you're buying and selling shares of energy, and your goal is to make a profit. You don't want to lose your company money. So you want to sell the electricity for more money than it takes you to make it. And so you're going to have to be familiar with finances and economics. Being able to negotiate and oversee contracts. You can see all these folks are in front of a computer. They're looking at weather. They're talking to different folks in the industry. Nuclear power plant's going to be down and offline for a few weeks. So you're going to have to be able to trade energy and maybe get some electricity from a natural gas neighboring power plant to make up for that loss in the baseload power. As you see this lady here giving some insight to another young lady. And then look at those cool computer screens.
Wow.
They got what, almost 12 computer screens, and they're usually on the phone, and things are happening so fast. And you're gonna have to be ready for that.
So fast paced, I have to know what current events are. I have to think about money. This sounds like demanding. It sounds like a high energy job.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. You're going to have high energy and high concentration. There's really no taking a break at this career. You mentioned
weather. You mentioned statistics, you mentioned economics. It sounds like there's a few different paths to get into this job. You don't necessarily have to be an economist, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Some kind of business background, I would say. Money's important on that, but really just being able to quantify things, I would say, having a knack for that or an interest in numbers would be the number one prerequisite.
That's really cool. Okay. Well, that sounds interesting. And I really like the high tech nature of that job. All right. I think I mean, I know you had another meeting to get to. Do you have time for one more job, Tyler?
Yeah, I can give you another one that I'm pretty passionate about, and that would be a power plant operator. I've got to go to a lot of power plants in my career, and they're so fascinating, whether you use natural gas or uranium or coal or wind or hydropower, however you're generating electricity, they're quite intriguing. In order to get into this field, you would need a high school diploma, and the main focus is generating electricity, which sounds super simple. However, you're going to have to understand boilers. You're going to have to understand how steam works, hot water heats. You're going to have to talk to your chemist about the purities of water. You're going to have to understand how coils of copper wire and magnets work in a generator. You're also going to have to understand turbines and turbine blades. And then there's a heavy prerequisite of understanding controls, gauges, computers, and systems. For instance, here's a control room. If that doesn't make the kid in you want to go flip switches, what would, you know? Absolutely. You can see numbers, and you're going to have to understand this system. In order to run a nuclear power plant, so that uses uranium, it's a minimum of 18 months just as a class. And you're going to have to be willing to study, read, remember, and be ready for a bunch of different buttons and sirens and alarms going off all at once.
So do they have to practice being in control? Like, do they have to run simulations? Are they constantly monitoring those computer screens? Talk to me more about that.
Yeah, so absolutely. What's really cool, if you ever get a chance to visit a power plant, they have a lot of what they call simulation rooms. And I got to see these in a nuclear power plant. So what it is, it's an identical room to what the power plant actually uses. The only difference is it's not connected to the actual turbines. So it takes a lot of knowledge, knowing what each button does, knowing pressures, knowing how things react. A lot of times it's an engineer that does this. You don't have to have a college diploma to get into a power plant, but you have to be really disciplined, and you also have to be willing to take advice and take orders and read your books and study.
This sounds like a challenge, but I like the idea that I could be trained in this and work my way up to it, right? So like I don't have to have a special degree, that they might train me to get me ready for this, and then I get to practice. Once I get my like plant operator certification, am I done? Or do I have to keep taking tests? Like, is it always going to look like that?
It is. I should say, I was going to say unfortunately, but actually fortunately for the industry, you're going to continue to have to take tests and be certified, and you're going to have to be alert and know these things. They're not, you're not just not one of those things where you pass it one time and then 5 years down the road, we trust that you know it. You're going to continue to be tested. I think every 6 months, at least every year, you're going to have to pass certification and pass tests to continue to have your license and all the credentials that allow you to be in there. Because if you don't do your job or you make a mistake, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people could be without power and be quite upset.
Wow. Okay. Well, that gives me a lot to think about. I've got some really cool options for my next career. I know you've got to run to another meeting. Thank you to whoever helped you get all of this information. Where did you get it all from?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime, Emily. The energy industry is always looking for great young people just like yourself. So thanks to the NEED Project for hiring me and allowing me to work for them doing energy audits and educational energy presentations and workshops throughout the country and throughout the world. And a special thanks goes out to the Mississippi Development Authority for sponsoring this and allowing me to help you out as you steer towards an energy career.